You know, when you think of great empires, you picture these massive, unbeatable forces, right? Like they're built to last forever. But history tells a very different story. And the fall of the mighty Mughal Empire, well, it wasn't what you'd expect. It wasn't one huge epic battle. It was something way more subtle.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How does a powerhouse, an empire that ruled a whole subcontinent, just fall apart? It's a huge question, and today we're going to dig right into it. And look, if you're picturing some massive invasion or one final explosive battle, that's not what happened here. The end didn't come with a bang.
It came with a breakaway. The empire literally started to crumble from the inside. Province by province, its own pieces just drifted away.
All right, so here's our game plan for today. First, we'll look at why the empire was even struggling in the first place. Then, we'll get into the really juicy part, the step-by-step playbook governors used to grab power. We'll see it in action with Hyderabad, Awadh, and Bengal. And then, we'll see who was waiting in the wings to pick up the pieces. Yep, the British. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's set the scene. Picture this. It's the early 1700s. The Mughal Empire is enormous. We're talking 22 provinces or subas stretching across the subcontinent. But trying to control all of that from one central spot in Delhi, it was becoming a nightmare. The whole thing was just stretched too thin. The edges were starting to come apart.
And you could see the warning signs everywhere. The emperor's own governors, the very people meant to run these provinces for him, started getting ambitious. They stopped just being managers and began acting like they were the kings of their own little domains. They even started passing the job down to their kids, creating their own dynasties. The emperor's authority? It basically boiled down to getting a check in the mail once a year, a tribute. The actual power was long gone.
But here's the kicker. This wasn't happening by accident. It wasn't just chaos. Oh no. These ambitious governors were all following the same script, a repeatable playbook for how to break away and build your own kingdom. There was absolutely a method to the madness.
So to get how they did it, you first need to understand how the Mughals tried to prevent it. They had this clever system of checks and balances. In every province, you had two top dogs. The Nazim, or governor, was in charge of law and order, the muscle. But, and this is the genius part, you had a totally separate guy called the Diwan, who controlled all the money, the revenue, the taxes, everything. And the Diwan answered only to the emperor. It was a perfect way to make sure no single governor could get both the power and the money.
So what was the playbook? Simple, but brilliant. Step 1, get the top job, become the governor, the Nazim. Step 2, find a way to grab control of the purse strings, the Diwani. Step 3, and this was the masterstroke, you merge those two jobs into one. Suddenly, you control the army, the courts, and all the cash. You're unstoppable. And from there, step 4 is easy. Make the job a family business. Tell the emperor thanks, but my son's taking over now.
All right, let's see this playbook in the real world. Our first case study, Hyderabad. And the guy who pulled it off perfectly was a noble named Nizam-ul-Mulk Asif Jah.
This dude was a big deal. He was appointed governor of the entire Deccan region, a huge chunk of territory. And what does he do? He goes in, crushes any opposition, and by 1724, he's basically established his own state of Hyderabad, kicking off a dynasty that would last for over 200 years.
And this is what was so clever about it. The Nizam never sent a letter to Delhi saying, "I quit." He never formally declared independence. He didn't have to. He was the ruler in everything but name. He ran the place, he collected the taxes for his own treasury, he was the king. He just kept up the appearance of being loyal to the emperor. It was the perfect setup.
But there was a fatal flaw in this new model. When the powerful Nizam died in 1748, his family immediately started fighting over who would be next in line. This messy succession war was like an open invitation for outsiders. And who showed up? The French. They saw the chaos and jumped right in, backing one side against the other, all for a piece of the action.
And this wasn't just a one-off thing in the South. The same exact pattern was playing out all over the empire. Let's head over to the super wealthy provinces of Awadh and Bengal. You had Sadat Khan in Awadh in 1722 and Murshid Kuldi Khan in Bengal a few years earlier. Both of them ran the exact same playbook. Get appointed, consolidate power, and turn the governorship into a family heirloom. They became the Nawabs, the de facto kings of their territories.
And you know what? For a while, it worked out great, especially in Bengal.
The Nawabs brought peace and prosperity, trade was booming, and they were smart enough to keep a very close eye on those European trading companies. They did almost everything right, but they made one huge, fatal mistake. They forgot to build up a powerful modern army, and that one oversight, well, it was going to cost them everything.
Because while all these new breakaway states were busy setting up shop, someone else was watching, patiently. The European traders, and let's be real, we're mostly talking about the British East India Company. They looked at this splintering empire not as a problem, but as the opportunity of a lifetime.
If you want to see how this whole process went from start to finish, just look at the story of the Carnatic region. It's like a textbook example. In the 1710s, the local Nawab breaks away. Check. Then, by the 1740s, family feuds over succession open the door for the British and French to bring in their armies. Check. Fast forward to 1801, and the Nawab is forced to sign away all his power in a treaty. And the final step? 1855. The kingdom is just gone, annexed, wiped off the map.
So, how did they legally justify just taking a kingdom? Well, they had a few tricks up their sleeve. One of the big ones was called the Doctrine of Lapse. The rule was simple and brutal. If a ruler of a state under British protection died without a direct biological male heir, poof, your kingdom now belongs to us. It was basically conquest by paperwork.
And if that didn't work, they had another go-to excuse, the pretext of misgovernance. This is what they used to snatch the incredibly prosperous kingdom of Awadh in 1856. They just showed up and said, you know, you're not running this place very well, we'll take it from here. It was a political excuse to grab land, plain and simple. And just like that, the whole era of these successor states, these kingdoms born from the ashes of one empire, was over. It ended fast and it ended brutally, with the rise of a new empire. The speed is just mind-boggling. Think about it, in less than 100 years, these proud, breakaway states were themselves gobbled up. Suddenly, the map of India looked completely different. Bengal, gone after the Battle of Plassey in 1757. The Carnatic, annexed in 1855. Awadh, swallowed up the very next year. And Hyderabad, the first and proudest of the breakaway states, was reduced to a princely state, which really just meant it was under British thumb. The takeover was absolute.
So it all leaves you with this one big, lingering question, doesn't it? The Mughal Empire fell apart because its pieces broke away to become their own powers. But then those new powers got swallowed by an even stronger one. It really makes you think. Whenever one great power crumbles, is there always another one just waiting, ready to take its place?